This has been the most anticipated mine restructuring probably in the history of South Africa. They've been talking about it, telling us about it for over a year now. They said it's going to cut through all their operations. It's going to go all the way from mining to refining, and it's going to look at creating a sustainable business, because a business that is losing money is not sustainable. A business that's making money is sustainable, and this is all about sustainable production, sustainable jobs. So I don't know if we can say this is more dramatic than we expected. It's more dramatic than we wanted to hear, than we wanted to expect. It was to be expected. All the signs were there. You don't need to be an accountant to read balance sheets. You don't need to be a mining engineer to calculate cost per ton and the work that's going into removing a ton of rock from the ground. All the signs were there, and it's just the important parties didn't want to talk to each other. They each wanted to do their own thing. And this is not dissimilar from Detroit. Detroit had to restructure in the late 70s, early 80s, because they just built too many car plants, too many automobiles, too many people were employed, and if they didn't restructure in Detroit, they would have all gone broke. Instead, you had massive restructuring, but at least it's a sustainable business. We've had more than a decade of double-digit cost increases. No business on this planet in any country can survive if its costs are going up double and triple the inflation rate. So the cost on Amplats has been going up more than double the inflation rate, probably for closer to 15, 20 years. And he said, the trend is in place. Boy, you've got to change. When you see a trend that won't change, you're not even having any impact. And that's the way we were working, the way our minds were working with the unions, the employees, and government. It was making that cost increase go up faster. There's no industry in South Africa, no private industry that pays as much as the mining jobs. If you want to make more than mining, you have to go into government. That's the only way you're going to make more. Work for Eskom or for SAA. But in the private industry, they won't find a job that pays this much. Now, there's potential blue sky and sunlight out there. The mineral prices we're receiving for almost all of our minerals are still very high. There's no reason almost all of our mines aren't expanding, because of the macro factor, a moderately weak rand, raging demand for commodities, and really high commodity prices on most commodities. We should be creating more jobs than we're losing. The fact that we're losing jobs means this is a dysfunctional mining environment. And this is the richest country in the world for minerals, and it's got probably the longest history of mining. So there should be no dysfunction here. I wouldn't blame this on the Americans. I don't think we can blame this one on them. I'll give you a good idea who's putting pressure on the board. And a lot of it is right here in this country. If you're managing assets, if you're managing pension funds for the PIC, the IDC, if you're at Old Mutual or your Sanlam or Investec or Allen Gray, those fund managers do not like companies that lose money. If you're managing money for Mark Shuttleworth and you put his portfolio into companies that lose money and go down, he's not very happy, and you wouldn't be either. And if you're a miner who's been working for 30 years, you find out the NUM pension fund is buying Amplats and Anglo American, and they're losing you money, you'll want to burn them down. So it's pension fund managers who are putting pressure on these companies to stop losing money.
Security forces. So African Union is also pleased that they'll be committing forces, but for now we haven't had anything to suggest of South Africa might be forces in Mali.
All right, the line is not too great there. Tsepo Ikaneng, thank you very much. Our senior political reporter there and the presidential correspondent at 19 minutes to 1.
This morning it is pointing to a lower opening later on this afternoon. On the local front, the Aussie is trading in positive territory this morning on the back of gains in the platinum sector as investors welcome Anglo Platinum's restructuring. On the industrial front, AVI reported a strong update for the 6 months to December on the back of its fashion brands. However, I&J disappointed. Just taking a look at our local indices, we've got the gold index, which is up 0.5%. Resource 10 index is up 1%. The industrial 25 index is down 0.1%. The financial index is down just over 0.5%. And overall, the market is up around 35 points, or 0.1% to 40,179.
Which stocks are on the move today, Sudhir?
On the upside, the platinum count is leading the way, and we have Implats, which is up 2% at 173 rands. Northam is up almost 2% at 37 rand 70 cents. Richmond is up 1.4% at 74 rands. Anglo Platts is up 1% at 496 rands. And on the downside, we have Mr. Price, which is down 5% at 126 rands and 60 cents. AVI is down 4.5% at 54 rands and 70 cents. Clicks is down 2.
Lays will provide competition to Eskom going forward, which will benefit us as consumers.
Okay.
But it will take time, and whether that's going to bring costs down we'll have to wait and see. But yes, I think it will be to the consumer's benefit if there are IPPs coming into the market.
And that's an energy expert with Frost and Sullivan, Johan Miller. At 9 minutes to 1, the African Union will send a long-term observer mission to Kenya ahead of the East African nations for March 4th general elections. African Union Commission's chairperson, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, said the program is part of the Commission's efforts to ensure that elections conducted in Africa this year are peaceful. Let's say good afternoon to our Kenya correspondent, Sarah Kimani. Sarah, what's been the reaction to the news of the long-term observer mission in Kenya?
Well, the local observers and civil society organizations have welcomed the announcement. Politicians are yet to speak because the groups that are going to be monitoring the elections are expected later today. This was an announcement that was made by the African Union Commission chairperson, Dr. Dlamini-Zuma, at the beginning of the year. And so today is when these observers are expected in the country. So probably reactions from the political class will pick off from today. But Kenyans are especially concerned that because of areas where there's been pockets of violence, they're concerned that the country and especially politicians need to be kept on their toes to ensure that their utterances towards the elections do not bring a repeat of the 2007 post-election violence.
All right, we'll be talking some more later on in the week about how the politicians reacted to this. But is it all systems go now?
Yes, this week we're going to be having nominations for the parliamentary seats and the governor seats, and also later on in the week we are going to have the nominations for the presidential seat. So that is all systems go for that.
And of course, what is the situation right now? Are you seeing a lot of violence? Is it subsiding in parts of Kenya?
What has happened is that there's a lot of accusations and counter-accusations of theft, of probable rigging of elections from the main contenders of the elections. But there's also been pockets of violence in some parts of the country where it is believed that politicians may be funding political violence ahead of the nominations or ahead of the elections to kick out groups that they feel do not support them. This is something that even former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan alluded to, and he said that it is a concern both to Kenyans and to the international community.
Sarah Kimani is our Kenya correspondent. Of course, we'll be talking to her building up to the March 4th general elections there. And we're hoping to be talking to our Zimbabwe correspondent, Shingai Nyoga. Let's say good afternoon to her. Shingai, the United Nations is today launching a global appeal for $131 million US. This in an effort to meet